Welcome patrons! Today's video is both highly requested, but also very short. Like, this may go down as the shortest lore video I have done or will ever do. But you guys wanted it, so let's talk about the Scaled Ones. History. A majority of what we know from the Scaled Ones comes from the Codex entry from the Descent DLC called Chronicles of a Forgotten War. The basic plot is that the unknown Dwarven author is talking about their time fighting with the Scaled Ones in the Deep Roads. Honestly, there is so little it's hard to connect the points of information we have, so this next part is going to seem a bit jumbled, but let's just get on with it. The Scaled Ones is a name given to them by the Dwarven people, so it's possible we might have heard about this group before with a different name. The Scaled Ones were attacking Cad Halash, which is somewhere under Ferelden. It could be that if the Scaled Ones are still alive, they are still under Ferelden. Let's also talk about Cad Halash for a moment. Above all others, this Tig seemed to have some strange things going on about it. After the destruction of Arlathan, they ended up housing a lot of refugee elves, which went against the alliance between the Dwarven people and Tevinter Imperium. So, the Tig was destroyed by the then capital of the Dwarven Empire, Kal Sharok. The settlement was then rebuilt into Kadesh Tig, where Shiel the Golem was from, and your ancestors if you play as the Dwarven Inquisitor. In the Codex entry, it mentions both Cad Halash and that the dwarves had met the Tevinter Imperium humans, so we can actually sort of pinpoint when it was supposed to happen. If we use the dates of when the Imperium was founded and before Cad Halash was destroyed, which is negative 1195 and negative 975, we have about 220 years for the Codex to have happened. They seem to prefer the dark, or at least attacking in the dark by taking out torches whenever they can. I think this suggests that they have a strong ability to see in the dark at the very least. We don't get too many descriptions of what they look like, but we know that they are much taller and heavier than a dwarf. Their body is somewhat similar to that of a human, but covered in scales. It has a jaw that can somehow open up enough to wrap around a face, and then was also used to break a neck. It can roar and has sharp teeth and talons. They wear armor and have weapons as well, which suggests that they are either stealing these weapons and armor or are making them themselves. They are not used to losing, and when one of their own is killed, it shocked the other members of the group. They have a sort of religion. The Codex entry talks about a golden altar shaped like fire, and on each tip of the flames were bodies of dead dwarves that they had killed. They had drained the blood from the bodies and kept it in a basin. A female of their kind, dressed in robes whose voice was a bit softer, chanted in a language and raised the basin while the others bowed. The robed female then worked magic, igniting the blood, but the fire came from their hands and mouth. They would eventually take all of that with them, even the bodies, wherever they went, but they left behind the burnt basin. Now, some have taken this to mean that they can ignite fire from their mouth, like it just has a racial ability, but this is a world of magic and stuff. Like, this is something probably a human could do if they knew the spell for it. So I'm not that impressed that fire came out of their mouths, but this could end up being something where it's a biological trait rather than a magical one. Other clues. There are two notable clues about what the Scaled Ones could be. Neither of these are actually directly connected to the Scaled One, but as you will see, could have some connection. The most obvious are the paintings found around the environment in Dragon Age Inquisition, of a large, lizard-like person thing. While there may be more, I've only heard of them being in the Lost Temple of Durthamin and the Emerald Graves. Both places are associated with the elves. So this means that whatever they were, the Scaled Ones were known by both the dwarves and the elves. We learn in Trespasser that the elves did go into the deep at one point, so it's possible that they know the Scaled Ones from places like the Lyrium Processing Center, but it's also possible that the Scaled Ones went onto the surface. Solas also told us that the Evanurs rose to power because of a war, but we're never actually told what the war was from. A lot of people are kind of assuming that it was because of the Forgotten Ones versus the Evanurs, but what if it was actually versus the Scaled Ones, and the ones that we see in this Codex entry are just left over from the time of the war. Now, that being said, there is absolutely nothing connecting them to this war that Solas mentions, but why else would the elves draw giant pictures of them? Another clue is from Cassandra if you specialize as a Reaver.
Be careful, Inquisitor. Dragon blood can change you in ways you will not expect.
How do you know that?
Dragon hunters were once revered in Nevarra, and the Pentaghasts were the most famous. Many of my family became Reavers, harnessing the power of dragon's blood against their quarry. But each one went terribly insane in the end. Eventually it was forbidden.
They all went mad?
It was their own doing, I understand. Greed drove them to use more and more. The blood deformed them, caused growth, scales, things of that nature. They became enraged by little things. In time, that rage swallowed them. They committed murders, killed entire families, unspeakable things. Tales from hundreds of years ago, of course, likely exaggerated, but perhaps not entirely.
Scales, angers, and being crazed? Well, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Perhaps the scaled ones are just longtime worshippers of dragons who have drank their blood for so long that they've just completely transformed into these lizard-like people. Or not. Who knows? We don't know anything. And that, dear patrons, is honestly all that we know about the scaled ones. Everything else is just theory. In fact, there's a lot of theory just in this video. Hopefully in the next game we get something else. Maybe this is going to be something that we're going to have to fight in the future, or it's just a little tidbit we'll never get back to. Anyway, do you still have lingering questions, proof that I'm wrong? Comments about your own fan theory. Feel free to tweet me at @Gildathelon on Twitter or send a PM to user Gillanon on Reddit. I'm really behind on messages, but I'll get back to you soon, I promise. I'm so sorry, Duress Sheral.